Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. I would love for this one to be my daily driver through the winter, maybe even beyond that. That was my plan for it because this is a rough Mercedes-Benz S123 station wagon, turbo diesel, all the good things, 7 seats and all that. But it's really rough and it could become a challenge because there's rust issues that I need to fix. There is engine or gearbox issues that I need to fix because right now it's actually undrivable. I picked this up a couple of weeks back. At that point I was told that it wasn't really running right. It could only go 30 kilometers per hour, I think. It turned out that it needed 2 liters of gearbox oil. So I filled that back in and then it drove okay. It wasn't the best gear change and all that, but it was working fine. A week later it started acting up again and now it's stuck in I think first or maybe second gear. Which is pretty annoying because it's limiting the top speed by quite a lot. Maybe a flush of the gearbox could make, but to be honest, I think the gearbox is just worn out. This car got 720 something kilometers on the clock. The engine has been rebuilt. The gearbox has, as far as I know, not been touched. So it is okay to be worn out. And it is slipping a lot when I floor the throttle. So I think it's about time to either rebuild or hopefully find a spare one to put in. That would be the fastest thing because I have never even opened up an automatic gearbox. So rebuilding one would be a challenge, especially if I want this to be my daily driver in a couple of weeks. But what I want to do in this video is to assess the engine because the bodywork is rough, the interior is rough, the gearbox is rough, everything is rough. I hope the engine is pretty all right because it was rebuilt in 2019. The bottom end, the pistons, the bores, all that should be rebuilt. I don't think much was done on the top other than maybe checking the valves and all that, but at least I can see the camshaft is the original one and it's quite worn, so it would be nice to change that. But what I really want to make sure before I start working on this car is that I got good oil pressure and good compression, because if those things are also bad on this one, then it's just too big of a project right now, that's for sure. The reason why I expect something to be wrong is that when I picked this up, it was missing 3.5 liters of motor oil. It still showed fine oil pressure on the gauge while driving and at idle, but it's a lot of oil to be missing. Of course, I just filled it up, but I know it had been driven with that amount of oil for a while. I think this engine takes quite a lot of oil, so maybe I'm lucky that it hasn't hurt anything. It could maybe just have made the engine run a little bit higher. As long as the pickup tube was inside oil, it would be able to deliver oil pressure. That's my hope. So I'm going to check the oil pressure to make sure it's fine. So let's get to work and try to measure that oil pressure. That line going from the oil filter casing and up is the line for the internal oil pressure gauge in the on the cluster. I'm going to undo that and attach my gauge to that outlet down there. Did I ever mention that sometimes a small job becomes much larger than you thought it would be? This was one of those things. The flare nut down there was extremely tight. So to really grab it, I had to use a closed wrench. I actually tried with an open wrench that just flexed. So I had to take the other side of this oil pressure line that goes into the cabin, into the instrument cluster, and gives the oil reading off. So I could put this one on top of it. Now it's out. So at last I have rigged up a system that I can use to check the oil pressure. I reconnected that line because I had nothing that fitted in those in the thread down there in the oil filter box, but I made this connection, which is relying on clamps. So I'm gonna wear some safety gear. But I want to fire it up now and check the oil pressure. Then I want to let it heat up and then check the oil pressure again. I would like to see between 1.5 and 3 bars at idle. 3 bars, hopefully around 3 bars when it's cold, and then hopefully not go lower than 1.5. And then I want to see it rise when I rev the engine above 1500 RPMs. I would like to see it rise above 3 bars, so I'm going to do that. It is not completely cold right now. It is around 40 degrees right now, so yeah. So I'm gonna wear some goggles and then start it up. Okay, so it didn't rise up really quickly, but it's also connected with a long line, so I think that's okay. It's 3 bars right now at idle. That's nice. Just gonna rev it a bit. It is leaking slightly from the connection down here, but it's not that bad. I'm gonna let it heat up and see what the pressure drops to. Okay, so I'm having a bit of a problem because this is a big diesel engine, and it's just not going to get hot standing here idling. It will have to work, and I cannot really drive it. So I don't think I'm going to get it any hotter than this, to be honest. The oil pressure is now reading 2.5, I'd say, at idle. I'm just gonna rise the revs a bit. I think that looks pretty decent, especially considering that I'm pretty sure this is really old oil and really old oil filter. So a change of oil and change of oil filter will most likely see a better pressure. But as far as I know, this pressure is just fine. So I am satisfied with that, especially considering that this oil is most likely years old. So let's check the compression. And to do that, I'm going to remove all glow plugs. I think I can get to almost all of them without removing the injectors. I might have to do it on one of them. We'll just have to see. But I'm going to start by disconnecting the diesel line because I don't want it to be firing when I do the compression test. Got a massive diesel leak up here, by the way. There's so much stuff to do on this one. But yeah, that's just the way it is. All glow plugs are now out, and I have connected the first cylinder. I can see already now that I'm going to struggle getting the tool on at least 3 of them. So I might end up having to take out the injectors instead. But let's test the first one just to get an indication whether this is worth it. I'm going to try to crank it. I guess something is wrong with this setup. I doubt that we are seeing 0 psi on the first one. Okay, so I'm giving up on that compression test for now. When I buy specialist equipment like this, compression tools and gauges of different kinds, I tend to go for some pretty cheap brands because they are expensive, these kinds of things. And I don't use them that much. So in my opinion, it makes sense to buy the cheap ones. 8 out of 10 times, they work just fine, but sometimes they just don't. And this one, it's a bit silly. As you could see when I tried the compression test, it jumps up a little bit, but it doesn't hold pressure. And it's really weird. And I have been fiddling around with it for quite some time, and then I realized that it's not fitted with a one-way valve. So it will never make a compression test without that because the pressure will just escape back into the engine after the compression. I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe they have messed up the function of fuel pressure gauges and compression gauges, because if it was pressure, then it was all right, but not for compression. So I have ordered a new one of these, and that will hopefully arrive in a couple of days, and then I will continue this test of the engine. I figure the gearbox is toast. But I cannot see any harm in trying to do some stuff. I have tried adjusting the Bowden cable. I have checked for vacuum leaks, and I have checked the kickdown cable, or the kickdown bottom inside is not stuck. I want to see if it even works in this video. That will be the first thing. If that doesn't give any clues to what's going on, then I think I'm just gonna drop the pan, drop the oil, and see the state of that. To be honest, I'm gonna collect it in a clean can and put it back in case that in case it looks completely wrecked in there, because I don't want to add 8 liters of expensive fluid if it's clearly worn out. The only reason why I would do that is to make it possible to move it in and out of the garage. But if it looks clean inside, then maybe a filter and some fresh oil could do something. I really doubt it. But I don't have much to lose other than the cost of oil. And apparently these 722.31015 is rare, the gearboxes. So I could end up having a hard time actually finding one. Rebuilding is of course an option, but remember, I want to use this as a winter car, and winter is getting here pretty quickly. So it would be nice to fix it, at least just make it work through the winter. But down here, underneath the accelerator pedal is a switch. You can see it down there. So when you floor the throttle, I can't even do that from this position, but it is supposed to click this button. That will tell the gearbox to lower a gear or go into as low a gear as possible to accelerate as fast as possible. I have already started to remove the connector. I'm just gonna do it all the way, like so. And then I'm actually just gonna jump this switch with a piece of wire, like so. Now I don't know if the car needs to be in ignition and the gearbox needs to be in drive for this to work, but I'm just gonna do that. And then I'm gonna listen for a click. Yeah, I could hear a click, but that was the glow plug relay. Let's just try to take that wire out, plug it in again, and see if we can hear a click. Well, I think it even picks up on the mic actually. That is working just fine, unless it clicks when I put this one on. And it doesn't. What about if I press the button? Yeah, that switch is working just fine, unfortunately. So with the car now up in the air, let's go beneath it and take a look at that gearbox. And there we go, one piece of gearbox. And you don't have to tell me the car is rusty, once again. I know, it's not what this video is about. I have been down here a couple of times inspecting the vacuum line and the Bowden cable, and everything seems fine from the outside. So I cannot really see anything else to do now than to just try to take the pan off and see what's in there and what comes out. Yeah, it's not red, that's for sure. You would want it to be red and pretty clear. It's not, even though I have put in a couple of liters of clean oil. It is really dirty. I'd say it looks like metal particles. Yeah, it does. I really think it's worn. And using the skill 3265, I'm just gonna zip out the bolts holding the pan in. Oh, it could be so nice if I could just get a couple of months out of this transmission. I really doubt it, but it could be so nice. Ah, there we go. So yeah, this is not looking too nice. We got a lot of glitter going on in there and some slushy kind of oil. Also pieces down here that I don't like to see. I'm having a hard time figuring out what that is coming from. It could maybe just come from the gasket area because it's so dirty. But it do look like metal, to be honest. I just need to check if it is. Okay, so it's not metal. That's a good sign, I guess, because there's a lot of metal things in there that are not magnetic. But it's not magnetic. It could be a stone, of course. If it is, then I expect it to just come from the outside. When I took it off, I was just trying to be really careful. But I'm not really sure what that is. But overall, it's not looking too good down here. It's hard to decide what to do about this. So it has been trying to suck the filter into the gear, most likely because it has been so clogged with crap. It looks like the universe. Now don't get me wrong, I know that this is extremely bad, but still, would it be worth it to just try to change the filter and the fluid? Just to see if it still works, also for the fun of it. Yeah, I will lose some money if it doesn't work, but I will win a lot. It will not be perfect, that I know. But this must have, I don't really know how this system works, but this can't be good. It must have sucked the entire filter through here. Deciding what to do right now is difficult because I think it would be a waste of money to try to put a new filter and new oil in it. On the other hand, it would be such a shame not to try it because maybe there is still life left in this one. But without knowing a lot about automatic transmissions, I do know one very important thing you always hear is it needs to be extremely clean inside. And this one, it's like the Milky Way in there. There are so many particles. I really doubt it will do any difference. I have to think about this and what to do. If I choose not to try new oil and new filter, then I'm just going to fit the old filter and fill the old dirty oil back in it so I can drive it out until I find a new gearbox. I'm almost certain that it will work better with new fluid, but I'm just not sure it will be worth it. What do you guys think? Anyway, I'm going to go off to bed and think all night through about what to do next. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.